All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is my student Christoph's third shot at 25 NL. He took a beating the last time, hit a brutal downswing, had to move back to 10. He's rebuilt his roll through some awesome grinding, and we're gonna go again for your viewing pleasure. Play and analyze. Hit deal me in, Christoph. Let's get the cards in the air.
So here we are using B200 or check. I don't know if I could B200 here. Maybe I have a backdoor. Two backdoors, but the straight backdoor is bad. I'm gonna check. I don't have to bet. And I feel that now I could bluff this one. This is quite underprotected. But do I have showdown value? I'm not sure. This one I'm really not sure. I'm gonna bet, but I'm not convinced. But I feel if I'm betting now and a brick comes, I have to go again on the river. Now I'm being check raised. I just don't want to embark into that. I think it's, I don't know, but I just don't want to take that spot that I don't know, so I'm gonna fold.
Okay. Okay, so on the flop, if you're playing B200 or check, like if that is your strategy, you can absolutely bet hands like 1 over card and some backdoor straight draws. You do not want to be fussy with your flop strategy at all when you're bluffing, and you need to try and learn what the sort of low equity common bluffs are, and they're very typically going to be exactly hands like king 3, king 4, king 5. The fact that if a 4 and a 5 comes, that you have a low straight doesn't really have anything to do with it. You still have a straight, and if we were that picky about what we bluff, we'd end up not using any low equity bluffs. So the first thing I need you to change in your game is your sort of minimum standard for bluffing flop. You can use hands like that.
Okay, I felt like I could. Like, I have these pointing systems in my head, which I try to make analyzing the GTO solver, which is I kind of need 3 points. An overcard is 1 point, a backdoor is 1 point, and here I have 3 points. I have a king, I have a backdoor hard flush, and I have a backdoor straight. So I knew it was a possible bet, and I think I said something like that. But I also know that I shouldn't bluff them all, otherwise I'm gonna bluff too much. And so it's not that I felt I couldn't do it because of that. I just felt like, okay, I'm not using a randomizer, and if I'm not using a randomizer, well, I need to base it on some things. And I felt, okay, this might tilt the thing into not betting, because if I hit a 5 and a 4, it's not good enough. For example, if I had king 2 of hearts, I don't think that would be good enough to bluff, but I'm not sure. That's just how I feel after my studying.
Okay, I think you're being a little bit too harsh with your standards. I'd also say that, like, if you want to use a randomizer just for the purposes of things like this, because there are a lot of hands that can either bet or check on the flop, it's okay in common spots like that. Just don't start abusing it on the river when you're bluff catching or anything like that. The other thing to say is that against the recreational, like this player, I don't know if you noticed, but they had like a 40 something VPIP. I wouldn't actually use B200 as a bluff against someone like that, because as your opponent becomes a fish, their reaction is going to be more inelastic, right? Where if they're continuing, they're continuing. The exploit there is to size down your bluff and keep your value bet huge. So use a huge value bet, but use a smaller bluff against that sort of opponent. That's really important. Okay, on turn, you definitely want to default to betting here, and I don't mind your sizing at all. The reason you default to betting is that you do have still an optional bluff in GTO. There aren't really strong requirements for delayed c-betting because it's a very favorable node for your range. We talk about that in the Carrot Poker School in grade 2, which you're currently working through. World favorability, where do you have to be select? And here, because of the action sequence, you can just bluff whatever you want, and you strongly need to favor bluffing against pool because it's so underprotected and overfolded. So you shouldn't be in any quandary on turn. It shouldn't even be close. You should just be betting your hand against pool. Against a recreational, again, I would use that exploit of just sizing up a bit when you're value betting and sizing down a bit when you're bluffing. So if you wanted to use a bit of a bigger sizing, if you had pocket eights there, I think that's fine. When you face raise, you had a bit of a mind blank here, and I think I want you to think about this a bit in theory. Could it be theoretically reasonable to call this hand or raise this hand on turn facing this raise? Like, is that a possibility that it's okay in theory to continue?
It looks like a fold to me.
Yeah, when you face a bet or raise, the bottom of your range is necessarily a fold. Like, the worst hands in your range are always a fold when you face a bet or raise, unless villain has taken some, like, absurd strategy that their range can't support or something. So there's no, like, I'm folding here because I'm avoiding trouble or I don't know, and that's why. You're folding because you have the bottom of your range against aggression, and that's just necessarily always a fold.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I wasn't really considering anything else.
No.
I guess I didn't want to look stupid or clueless on the video, but yeah, I was always folding that.
Yeah, so you know, you don't have to like hedge there. You can just say, I have nothing, I've faced a raise, I fold. Okay, let's jump back in.
Okay, so I don't know if I should raise here. I'm not going to. I don't love that hand. Maybe I should. And I'm going to play it like a neat fish passive. I guess these hands are. I'm not so comfortable. Maybe I should bet for value, but I'm value/denial. I don't know. I just don't. You want to discuss that one?
Yes. So we're in the big blind with ace-7 off. What did you notice about the button limper? Did you spot anything about them?
I mean, they are not. None of the two opponents were full stack. Very high VP. I mean, it was clearly a fish.
Yeah, not just any fish, but people with an 88 VPIP, they should be in a category of their own because these are the people that have enormous loss rates by playing enormous quantities of hands, basically, right? This is what makes games crushable, is people like this. When they limp the button with an 88 VPIP, you have to understand that they could have like 4 or 5 off in their range, you know? They could have all sorts of hands like this. So your ace-7 is massively upgraded. Now, what would be the bottom of your offsuit ace isolation range if it was a normal limper? Like, where would you start isolating with respect to these offsuit aces?
I don't know what's a normal limper. To me, there is no such thing.
Unknown player.
But I don't know, maybe ace jack, ace 10, something like that.
Right. So ace-7's a bit worse, but an 88 VPIP is such an enormous difference that you should just try and isolate with ace-7. Now, the hand is more than good enough. You want that small blind who's also completing really wide out of the pot so you can get heads up against that player. With that comes a lot of like pitfalls, uncertainty. You have to navigate a lot of like sticky situations, but you are against a range that's practically any two cards with an ace and a 7. So make the pot bigger, get it heads up, and then just do your best.
Okay.
On flop, what do you think their range is for betting pot on 999? What do you think they have?
I don't know. I have no clue.
Well, they started with everything, right? So I guess I could put the question another way. How much does a player like that betting pot here filter their range, given they started with like basically any hand?
I think a lot, but I might be wrong. Many pocket pairs, maybe some aces.
How unlikely are pocket pairs when you start with an 88 VPIP? Very unlikely, right? Very tiny part of range. So I would call the flop and I would call down with a7. And the reason is that I expect them to just mostly have 2 random cards. And yes, like when they bet pot, some people won't do that with 2 random cards, but many of the people who play an 88 VPIP are not shy about what they put money in the middle with. There are very few people that play 88% of hands pre-flop and are then just like only betting a pair on the flop for pot. So I would check call the flop. Ace-7 is way ahead of 2 random cards, and it's ahead of 2 random cards that are a bit filtered. And then you just have to put on your big boy trousers and just check call some random run out and see how you do. It's one of those spots. That's the way I would adjust to an 88 VPIP here.
Okay, I'm really not there yet, but I'll try.
Very hard spot. I don't think many people at your stakes are getting that right. And there'll be people in chat that don't want to do that or don't do that and want to disagree. But I think when you think about it rationally, if that VPIP is even over like 20 or 30 hands, it's going to be very accurate by then. That's a stat that converges very, very quickly. We don't need a big sample for VPIP to converge. There are no regs running 88 VPIPs over 40 hand samples, for example.
Okay, so I like to check here. His 3-bet is quite high. I'm going to open. If I check the 3-bet was more if someone opened, whether I can call or not. 11 is a lot. I think it's close. I know it gets 10. I'm supposed to call. I'm not sure. I'm going to call, but I think it's close. And now I'm in this spot that I hate. But I guess this is not connecting to his range that much. It's a big, big bet. I'm folding.
Cool, let's
I'm not
talk
sure.
about that one. Deuces is one of the only pocket pairs. I think like deuces and threes are okay to fold. I would fold as a default against this pool, because I think deuces is a fold in GTO, although it might be very close. If they are too linear in their 3-betting, like they're not using enough low EV bluff 3-bets, then yeah, the hand's just going to perform worse, right? You're going to run into the bigger pairs more often. So I think fold pre is good. Against someone that looks really aggressive, I would probably also default to just folding hands like this pre-flop, because if they're aggressive, your realizability is also just going to be low, and it's not really the sort of hand you want to defend. As played on the flop, I would fold, because even though like you do have the best hand a lot, again, your realizability out of position is very low, and the problem is that you are very likely to face more aggression, so you just don't get to call and realize at the same frequency that you would in theory. And I think in theory, the hopeless underpair is a fold to that sizing anyway.
Okay. Okay, so ace jack suited we open. Big blind calls, and we've got ace jack. It's very dry board. My hand is good, but I don't think I have a 3 streets of values, so I like to check. I could have bet small, I guess, but now I'm kind of bluff catching and I don't mind it, so I'm gonna call and call the river. Should I raise the river now? Not even sure. Okay, now I should bet. I'm gonna bet quite big because either they have a bluff or they have some showdown value, and they're gonna call most sizes.
Okay, good one.
And they fold.
Interesting one. So on the flop, you use the argument that because you're not betting 3 times, you shouldn't bet flop. First off, I'm not sure that argument is valid. Like, I think there are many times when you're not betting 3 times, but it's still better to bet earlier. That would be more on like lower, wetter boards though, right? Where you're trying to like rush money in. What's our default game plan? Obviously, I'm building this new course right now where I try to like streamline strategies and give you a clear line. So what would that course tell you to play here as a strategy?
I'm not 100%, but what I had in my head is either bet 1 big blind or check, because it's a pair deuce.
Yeah, so on ace deuce, it would actually just be range 1 big blind, like just bet very small with range because this is such a favorable board for you. The deuce is kind of the rarest guest in any pre-flop range, right? It's hard to have it, and so we can sort of not ignore it. Like if the pot starts getting big and villain raises and bombs turn, we can start thinking about the deuce, but we don't think about it on the flop. I also disagree with the premise of your argument that you aren't getting 3 streets. I think you very clearly are getting 3 streets here and should be striving for 3 streets because a deuce is rare. Ace queen plus 3 bets pre-flop most of the time, so you just have the best ace, and on any run out it doesn't, pair the board again or isn't a deuce. There are so many worse aces for you to get called down against here, so you're grossly underrating your hand on this flop.
Okay.
And therefore, betting flop, getting the pot growing a little bit, setting up for turn bet and river bet is mandatory. As played, villain is probably playing some completely nonsense random merge turn betting strategy. I think call is right though. Obviously, you're now playing the board, the queen or the king. Those are other cards, by the way, that when they come, it's harder to get 3 streets. You should still try because people do call down with like worse than an ace or with second pair or something. So you should still try. But on that card, I agree with calling turn. On the river, you have the best hand almost always. I like a big sizing. I think villain's most likely hand is just an ace. I think they're very unlikely to fold an ace. I think you could have got greedier on the river here and maybe gone for like an overbet or pot or something. I think you could have sized up a little bit, but I like that you bet like fairly big.
Okay. Oh, lots of 32 attempt to steal. I don't know, maybe I should re-raise that, but I'm not going to now. I'm gonna call once. Should I bet now? I don't see any point of betting actually. Maybe I should to deny equity, but now the jack is hitting a lot. Maybe I should check fold actually now. This is hitting his range a lot. I think I have still okay showdown value. Okay, maybe I should have bet.
Even if villain's a bit weaker and looser, it's not clear that a hand like fives becomes a 3-bet. I think fives is the sort of hand that very much likes calling. It likes to see the flop. It doesn't have this like brute force frequent strength where it can like hit top pair and just frequently put a lot of money in. So I wouldn't deviate to the point where I'm 3-betting fives against such a player. I would start to 3-bet jack 9 suited, like bigger cards more often, queen 10 suited, stuff that can hit top pair, that has more frequent connection to flops a bit more. On the flop, we face a check, and on the turn, I think that although the flop checking range is probably too weak and underprotected, I think your hand is just too much in the showdown band here. It's not quite bad enough to start bluffing. If you had like any kind of gut shot low showdown value hand, I would lead immediately. So with like king 5 here, I would never check, even though it's a mix in GTO. I just always lead because I think that spot's just going to be overfolded, underprotected. And on river, yeah, I don't think you're anywhere near either value betting or bluffing. You just have the middle.
So I played it perfectly.
Absolutely. You should move up to 50 NL now.
Yeah. Okay, let's go. Tens. Yes. So these are the hands that if he 3-bets me, I'm going to call, but I don't know if I should treat it as a state mining or, I mean, I guess it depends on the board. So here, I think I'm right in the middle. It's, I think, a clear check. Now the bet 3, I have to call, and we're gonna evaluate on the river. It's a good river for me. They might have a king. I need to win 1 out of 4 times. I think I will. So I'm gonna call, but
Yep, that hand's good. And you can see that They are just doing random stuff, right? There's no definition to their range. So what's your strategy? What's your c-bet size if you c-bet?
On these flops, usually it's 200 or check, but you've suggested adjusting that against the fish, so I think I can do whatever I want, depending on my hand.
Yep. A quick note, King XX and Ace XX, and to a lesser extent Queen XX as well, they're not generally the overbet boards. It's more double Broadway or low. And I don't want to get into a massive discussion about this right now because it's a bit of a theoretical thing to explain, but go back and review some of the materials I sent you on that, perhaps.
Yes, so I kind of did, but I didn't understand when checking. Actually, I remember you said that, but I get printed into my head because I couldn't understand on the solver. So probably I need to do more work on that.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, it's not terrible to play B200 check on this board either, by the way. But yeah, okay. I like what you said about you can do what you want. You can customize a bit more against a recreational player. Absolutely. I think betting small is a good way to go here as well. It might even be better. Your hand does benefit from a bit of protection, not too thin. Like you say, you're right in the middle, but if you're using 1 big blind or 1.5 big blinds, you can bet tens as well. I don't mind check either. If I had queens, I would always check against the recreational because I think there's just a bit more EV. That said, here there are some ways on a weather board like this that you can get like runner and stuff like that when you have queens. So the time I'm definitely checking against the recreational here is when it's like king 3-3 and I have queens because I think they just make far more mistakes there if I check the flop, and I really want them to hit second pair on the turn that I can value bet twice against if they bet tiny or start checking. So tens here, I'm leaning towards bet on flop, but small bet, but I'm not that bothered. As played, very clear turn and river calls. Folding the river here is a huge no-no. This is the most overbluff line in the game tree when you've just given them the chance to bet twice and they go half pot, half pot. All sorts of nonsense merges, stuff like this. The only question really on river is should you raise, but I think your hand's not capable of raising on this card. On a brick river, if villain goes smaller, raise could even be an option because they're just quite unlikely to play a king. With 2 small bets there, but that's me changing like 2 things about the spot, right? Making them go smaller and making the river a brick.
I must confess that I would struggle to find that play, but I get it. 5-4. I should limp. I hate. I'm giving this big blind just for Pete. Pete, that was for you. I don't know. Should I bluff this one? I've got no clue. I've got a gut shot, so I guess I could actually. I'm gonna bet a bit more than half. And I think no ace are gonna fold. I mean, hands without an ace. And against an ace, I mean, I've got some equity. So it was a dying call. I mean, they took a while to call. If it's a 10, I should go again. But if it's a deuce now, it's really bad. So I don't know. I feel I could do either. I'm gonna check, but I'm really not sure. Okay, so now I'm gonna fold. I feel they have something and it's probably a juice, so I'm going to fold.
Okay. Yes, limp a lot in splash pots is right. And it's right theoretically, but it's also even more right in this pool because at 25 and L, they're just not punishing limps enough. They're limping and then playing badly. I think your implied odds are better. The punish ratio is lower. I'm a fan of limping a lot in general in these cases, guys. So if you are playing 50 and L, 25 and L Russian cash and you see these splash pots, you don't know what to do get involved and then think about the fact that your opponents have really, really wide ranges after the flop. 5-4 off might be overdoing it, honestly. Like, it might be a bit much, but okay, you've got the right idea. I'm not going to criticize it too much. On flop, in fact, post flop in general, my verdict on your play is that it is sensational. It's a sensationally played hand. I really like it. Apart from your flop sizing, which I would go smaller. But the fact that you bet flop here is really, really important, and it's really key because when you have 3 random ranges, they're gonna have like combos of like 7-6 off and stuff. There's so much more fold equity than normal, and you're going to be able to observe run out, timing, line, all of this stuff to come to an intelligent decision about how to maximize EV further. You have this nut shot to the 3, and yeah, your fold equity's through the roof. I like third pot. I liked where you originally started with the slider here. Going bigger doesn't make sense because there aren't really any hands that are sensitive to sizing. If they have a pair on the board, they're probably not going to fold, especially in a splash pot, and they don't have many pocket pairs in a splash pot. The ranges are too wide, and if they have jack 9, they're just folding anyway, so you should just go small on flop, but you've got the right idea. I like checking turn. I don't know if a 10 is going to be a bit too stationary, just given it's a splash pot, it's a golden table, people want to win it. People get a bit insane in splash pots. An ace is never folding. A deuce just got there, it's never folding. A deuce is a really relevant part of range in a splash pot, right? because like the big blind just checked with deuce 6 offsuit, like all the combos of that, deuce 7. The deuce is a really important card in this spot, so well done on picking up on that. It wouldn't be normally because people don't defend a lot of deuce X in the big blind, but it is important in the splash pot. So I do think that understanding these key differences in range width is important for GG poker in general because of these splash pots. On the river, yeah, I don't think bet check bet is going to yield anything, even if you get the chance to bluff here. Villain's just not landing here with that much king high against your flop size or pocket sixes, so you're going to run into a 10 that's going to get stubborn, it's going to underfold. An ace is never folding, there could be the odd trap. Definitely hate bluffing if check 2 on river, and as played, yeah, you're right, villain likely has a strong range now, most often at deuce. So good hand reading, good line, too big on flop, slightly overdoing it pre, but lots of promising signs in that hand as far as I'm concerned as your coach.
Ace jack, cut off, we open, short stack here. So I'm going to check. I want to know his stats. Okay, looks quite passive. Don't me quite high here. I think it's gonna hit his range quite a lot. I don't want to defend that. Maybe I should.
What's your toolkit on the flop? What bet size are you playing?
Against this guy, I felt like if I'm betting here, I think he's gonna call only with hands that are beating me. I don't think it's a value bet, and I don't think it's a good bluff, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, so like a small bet is never bad with a hand like this. Like you do get called by worse. Like there's options to bluff later sometimes, and you deny some equity. So small bet's fine. Check is fine too. I think I'd go with check slightly, but I'm not bothered. And then on the turn, it's interesting, right? Because we know that humans are. I was just building this today. When I was making my new course, like, you know, what is the MDA on their leading? How does it compare to theory? How would we react to B75 on turn? It's a very common sizing that we face. Typically, your hand is right in the sort of break-even zone. Like I think ace, king, ace, queen. These are generally mixes on low boards on turn unless it's super dry, in which case they're clear fist pump calls. This board is quite dry, and so I think ace king ace queen are heavily leaning call here. I think ace jack is mixing call fold, and I think I would lean call because the opponent looks to have a high VPIP, and it's just a spot where you've given them the chance to lead everything. Some of the people with a higher VPIP are just leading everything here. I think I want to call ace jack against the fish. There's quite a bit of redraw. There's some implied odds to value bet rivers. You know, you say the low board can hit them a lot. I kind of disagree. I think it can, but it's a function of like how messy it is. It's much more likely to hit them if it's like jack 10 8 7 or jack 10 8 6 or queen 10 7 6 than 9 8 4 3. So I think this hand is like very, very borderline, but do note as well you have the ace of hearts, which means that if an ace comes on the river, it can't make them a flush. That's a slight bonus. I'm leaning call here. With it being a loose looking recreational, I'm leaning call.
Okay, makes sense. I'm expecting them to call a lot on the big blind, so I'm thinking they're gonna hit more than they actually are, because like you said, like you can have king 6, king 7,
right.
king
There's a lot of that, and there's a lot of like offsuit aces. You need to remember as well that this pool are very, very bad at cards. Like some pools are bad at cards. The recreationals in this pool are atrocious at cards. Uno as well as poker, they're bad at. And when they lead on the turn, they might not just be like polarizing and bluffing, but they're leading too depolarized, and they might even be leading like ace 6 and ace 3 and hands that you absolutely dominate. And because of that, that's why we just don't fold like two big card pair redraw against this sort of portion of the pool. If you want to get like a good grounding in some general data stuff, like where pools are over bluffing, under bluffing, guys, check out Grady of the Carrot Poker School. It's got data from like 50 NL, 100 NL, 200 NL, like a mix of different stakes, different games and sites. Data's data, like it is similar across different sites and games. And this is a spot where you'll see a lot of merginess. You will see people show up here with hands that just aren't in a polarized GTO range when you're playing as low as 25 NL. So ace jack is actually almost a more preferable call than something like king queen. Well, it is, right? King queen in theory isn't that different from ace jack, but in practice, because of like the random leading of ace 3 and stuff, ace deuce, sorry, let me pick a hand that isn't a pair. You want to have the hand that beats more of the merges, right? Which is why we favor ace jack there.
Okay, king 3 suited. We open. We get a cold. Okay, and now we have like a very big draw. Okay, this I don't know what to do. So I've got a good draw. I don't want to be check raised. I think it's never gonna fold, so I'm gonna default to check call and bet the turn if he doesn't do anything. Now I hate it even more. What did he call me with? I'm gonna bet small just because if it's an under pair, he's gonna fold. And if he has something, I hope to get redraws. If he raises, I will hate myself, but I'm gonna call. He folds.
So villain is folding on the flop if you bet. They're folding sixes, fives, 5-4, 6-5, sevens, eights, ace-8, maybe, like stuff like this. So there is fold equity immediately. But the thing is, there doesn't need to be much, or even really any, because if called, you're a favorite, probably. Like if you get called by ace-jack of hearts here, I think you're like 52%. I don't know what the exact equity is, but like you have so much equity. And on good runouts for you, the queen is okay, but mainly what I'm talking about is a spade. You have huge implied odds in this pool. So not only do you not need much fold equity to bet flop, but you do have some, and then you basically have a value hand as well. So betting flop here for me is automatic because I want to ensure the pot grows. I'll grab that little bit of fold equity that's there, but you shouldn't be framing it with this hand as I need lots of fold equity to bet the flop. Like, you're a favorite against lots of the hands that call you, and you do really well when the pot grows here if you hit.
I agree with that. I just felt like the first one is that I don't want to be check raised, and maybe that's a wrong feeling, but that's how I feel. And the second thing is that all of these hands that are going to fold on the flop, they are also very likely to fold on the turn. So there is no rush to make them fold.
Yeah, I agree with the second point. It's a good point. I don't think that check call's terrible as a line. I just think that you're underestimating the main thing about betting, which is that you basically have a nutted hand on lots of runouts that can happen here. So if you get raised, you can call and you can mine. It is unpleasant. You're nowhere near folding. You just call and you see what happens. They will have a strong range. They will be under bluffing. And if you hit, you should probably start leading. It's like just to give you a game plan there a little bit more so you hate it a bit less. But yeah, when you're out of position, you can also check and just face a big bet anyway, which isn't like that different. So if they do have a hand that's going to raise you if you bet, they're likely going to put in a big bet if you check, and it's not like worlds apart here if you've made a small flopsy bet. So yeah, I don't mind checking, and I don't mind check calling that much here, and I don't mind checking range as a general game plan either, by the way, against the reg. I just want you to be aware of the importance of growing pots with hands that can become nutted in pools that have like fission stations in them.
Yeah, I agree with that point. I think that's what I underestimate is when I had nutted draws to make the pot grow just in case I hit.
Yeah, it's a cool part of the game tree that really does like add some EV. On turn, I think it's okay to bet. Like I think your plan of like I'm gonna size small, under pairs will fold, etc. is okay. I do think there might be more fold equity than you'd imagine by river against some other parts of range. Like if they do have Queen 9, King 10, or that would be, yeah, King 10, King Jack, Queen 10, Queen Jack. You probably can go bet turn, bet river. They're probably quite capped here. If you do bet the turn and they just quickly call, you can probably go for a giant river over bet or some line like that. That might be an option. But yeah, overall, interesting spot. And I do have a general question for you. Overriding thing that I think people in the comments will have noticed about the way you think and talk about poker, Christoph, is negativity. Like I think you go quite quickly to like the negative branches. Like you say multiple times in our session, I feel gross, I hate this, I hate myself, I hate that. Where does that come from? Because like I work with you for context. Christoph is like one of the top French bridge players. I'm learning bridge. Christoph coaches me in bridge, and when you play bridge, you're insanely confident. Like, I'd never hear you think negatively. If you do take a line that you know is going to end in disaster 40% of the time, but you have to do it, you do it confidently and happily. Why do you think poker is making you feel so negative at the moment? Like, is it just because you're unsure a lot and you don't like being unsure? Or, like, what's going on? Because I do think this is negatively impacting your mental game and your performance a bit.
You're definitely right. If I knew why, I would try to correct it. If I take the comparison with bridge, I know that one of the big issues that most learners have is that they remember the bad boards much more than the good boards, and then they stop doing the things that are plus EV in the long term because they remember the bad ones, and that's probably, if I had to guess, what I'm suffering from. It just when I win a stack, it's much less in my head than when I lose one. That's my guess, and I need to work on that. I fully agree.
Yeah.
And also because my knowledge is not as strong, so I kind of assume I'm wrong instead of assuming I'm right,
Yeah.
which I need to work on.
Yeah. And I think you're quite unhappy about, not about being wrong, because you take feedback really well, but I think you're like, you approach poker with trepidation because you're worried that you're wrong while you're playing a hand. And I know you take the feedback well afterwards, but I don't think you like being wrong in the moment. And when you could be wrong, you err on the passive side, which sometimes causes like those kinds of mistakes. So what I would say is that we need to do two things long term to work on your mental game. One is I want you to be able to sit in the discomfort and distress of being wrong or possibly being wrong and being confused. I want you to actually feel that a bit more. So when you're playing a session and you play a hand that doesn't go well, don't just load up the solver and try and get a resolution. Don't just ask me or ask someone else, and don't bury the hand either, but just sit in the aftermath of that and feel the frustration and the bewilderment and the discomfort and sit in it, and then ask yourself, what was that like to sit in that? And do I feel like it's damaged me? And am I going to play worse poker now? And you'll probably find that the answer is no, that you were able to sit in the filth of your own uncertainty quite happily, and you wallowed in it for a bit, and then you come out the other side and you're like, yeah, I was uncertain, and I'll look that one up now that I've experienced that. But I want you to experience confusion, uncertainty, bewilderment, and not, because by avoiding something, we train ourselves to think that that thing needs to be avoided. The way to make fears bigger is to not look at it. The way to become more convinced that there are monsters under the bed is to never look under the bed, right? So do experience that, and I want you to do the same thing with losing hands. When a hand goes badly, I want you to sit and just experience the loss of the stack and what it feels like to get stacked. And eventually you'll teach your brain that you can handle the emotions that produces. It doesn't produce rational ones, by the way. The emotions it produces are disproportionate. They're not rational, they're not measured, but only by feeling them and experiencing them do we teach our subconscious that they're not appropriate and that they're not necessary. Because what will happen is you'll go, right, I lost that stack and I felt awful about it for a few minutes, but now I feel just fine. And then you'll think back and think, was that really like the right emotional reaction? That gives your subconscious the chance to calibrate its emotional responses rather than being like, oh, I just don't want to experience that. I'm just going to like try and avoid it. So that would be my 2 cents in how to deal with that. And it might be the opposite of what you think. You might think you can solve it with brute force logic and always getting to the rationality of it. But no, I think you need to just like be in those emotions a bit more until you learn that they're safe and that they're all right and that they're not going to hurt you.
Yeah, okay, I'll try.
Cool.
Thanks.
This has been awesome, and we'll get you back on to track your progress soon. Guys, if you like this format, let us know in the comments. We'll make another part of the 25NL shot continued. Let us know if you like it. And don't forget to use code CRUSH25NL. And because it's 25NL, we're going to give you an extra 5% off than what we normally do in these promos. Get 25% off whatever you want at Carrot Corner, but it's only going to be for 4 days. That's it. Time limit. Off you go. CarrotCorner.com for all of our stuff. Christoph, thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Pete. Pleasure.